Hey, boys and girls of all ages and abilities. This is Doug with Access Life, and I'm here to give you a little story from Belize. I think most of you guys know that we go down to Belize every year and we distribute mobility items and medical supplies to people living with disabilities down there. And we actually hadn't been able to do that for a couple of years because of the pandemic, and God opened the door this year for us to go down there, and I got to tell you, the need was really great. We had people contacting us off and on throughout the last couple of years about when we were coming back down. And we just didn't know. I mean, the rules were changing and things were going on, and so we didn't know when we would be able to go down there. But God was gracious and allowed us to put together a team, even though it was really small this year, and make our way down to Roaring Creek, Belize, which is where we go every year. We fly into Belize City. We drive about an hour and a half into Belmopan, the capital, and then make a left at the bridge and head into Roaring Creek, which is where Hearts of Christ is, which is the mission that we partner with. And these folks are great. They have a mission there, and we go every year, and they know the people in the community, and they're good about getting the word out, and they know who needs what, and they're just great partners on getting people there. So we went down there this year. Things were a little different. We actually took appointments this year because our team was so small, and we had so much stuff. I mean, we've been collecting stuff for so long. I mean, we had like 5 storage units in Texas that we had to unload and ship out a 40-foot container. Ended up weighing 16,940 pounds. It was crazy. We had about 30 power wheelchairs too, which was really amazing as well. And so the story today is about a guy named Francisco, and met Francisco on the 3rd day of our distribution. The first 2 days have been appointments, and the 3rd day we had this large group that come every year from Belize City, and the mayor in Belize City gives them a bus, and then also works with the military to bring out a truck to take all the things that we give them back. And I think this year they had about 62 people, I don't know, coming this year that needed items. And so we knew it was going to be a big day, but we were ready. We got our game face on, and the bus arrived about 9 a.m. and parked at the right in front of the mission. And there's a little flat spare up there because there's a big hill that goes down it, and the mission's on top of the hill. And a few minutes later, after a couple of people had gotten off, the bus started rolling down the hill. The brakes gave out, and the bus rolled all the way down to the bottom of the hill. And thank the Lord, it did not hit a house. It did not hit a horse. It didn't hit a dog, and didn't hit a person either. And stopped at the bottom of the hill. They were able to get it stopped. And then they were there to start unloading people again. And God bless all the people on our team and the team that brought these folks, because getting people with disabilities, at least 75 yards up a hill to the mission where we were, into the overhang where we were doing the distributions and the fittings and everything, is no small task, especially when the majority of these people didn't have walkers, crutches, canes, or even wheelchairs. And we had a few wheelchairs that we were able to send down to help carry people up. But, it's all dirt, gravel road there. I mean, there are paved roads in the country, don't get me wrong, but there's about 4, maybe 5, I don't know. One that goes east to west and one that goes north to south. And a matter of fact, the one that goes north to south, I know they just completed it about paving it like a couple of years ago, because the government there's wanted us to go to Punta Gorda for a couple of years, and that's a long way down, and it was an all gravel road. And Carla, who runs the mission, who has the bus that we would travel in, is like, you got to make sure that you can get me back if you get me down there. So thank the Lord, everybody was okay. Started getting people up. We kind of started doing a little triage. We have forms that people fill out, and then we start going through the forms and seeing what the needs are, what people want, what we've got, what's the best fit. And so we're kind of going through all that, and we're fitting people. And about halfway through the time there, I noticed there was a guy that was a quadriplegic like me, and he looked like a spinal cord like me, just from looking at him. I've been in disability ministry for a while and been around people with disabilities for a while, I can kind of spot things. And so I go over to him and I find his paper and I'm like, so tell me your name. And he's like, my name is Francisco. And, he's a spinal cord injury, quadriplegic like me. He could, use his hands somewhat, really couldn't use his hands, arms somewhat. But I said, okay. I said, so you're definitely looking for a power chair? And he said, that would be a blessing. He said, I've been praying for God to send me some help. And the longer I talked to this guy, he was a really strong believer. And I don't know how long he'd been injured or what his conditions were like, where he lived. But I told him, I said, hey, God got you here, and God got us here, and God got all this stuff here, and we're going to get you what you need today. So I went back and started looking over the things, and we were really low on power wheelchairs. We'd given out a lot, and there was really only one chair left that was probably a good fit for him, and it was not necessarily a complex rehab chair, but it was a good power chair, kind of like what I would use here, or I use here in the United States. So I'm thinking, okay, this will be for this guy. And so then I go back over and I talk to him. I said, I think we got something for you. And he looked at me and he told me, he said, thank you so much. He said, I've been praying for help, and I know that even if I don't get a power chair, that God is going to take care of me. And I thought, wow. I mean, Belize is no cakewalk for anybody. I know it gets this rap for this tourist thing, and there's a little sliver on the coast that's on the world's second largest barrier reef where they have some amenities, and people that want to move down there, I'm like, well, the people are friendly, they take the American dollar, they speak English, but don't get sick, because there's only about 4 hospitals in the entire country, and they usually go to Guatemala for medical care. And they don't have things like this. I mean, they just don't have wheelchairs or anything. And so I knew how important a power wheelchair would be to him, because, even in the United States, without a power wheelchair, I can't do a lot. And, of course, with God, I can do all things. And I try and remember that every day. So then I'm trying to figure out a situation more, and I go over to this head guy who brought this bus today. He's head of the organization, and I said, so what's the scoop on this guy? What do you know about him? He says, I don't know anything about him. He said, we had the bus parked there, and somebody pulled up in a car, and he was in the car, and we picked him up out of the car, and we put him on the bus. I'm like, wow, I wonder if this guy even has a wheelchair. So I go back over to him, and I'm talking to him some more, and I'm like, so Francisco, how did you get here today? And he said, well, I heard that you guys were coming, and so I had a friend that drove me from Orange Walk to Belize City on Saturday during the day. And I'm thinking, Orange Walk's like 3 hours away, and it's probably, I don't know, at least an hour and a half or more away from Belize City. And I thought, wow. And he said, I spent the night in Belize City, and then the next morning my friend got up and took me to where the bus was, and I got on the bus. So this guy literally got here without a wheelchair. I mean, God is true to his promises. And again, I said, well, God got you here. He got us here. We'll get you taken care of. And it took us a little while. Things were busy. We had a lot of people. I noticed at one point he was starting to get really hot. And being a spinal cord injury, quadriplegic myself, I knew that it was because he doesn't sweat. I don't sweat. I mean, if any of you guys have been to our expos, you know that, by noon, I'm pouring water on my head every 15 minutes to keep me cool. And in some cases, like one of our expos in Texas, where it was like 100 degrees, I had like a bag of ice on my lap to keep my core cool. So I knew he was getting overheated, so I was telling people to get him over in front of the van, and we had these ice bags. They don't have water bottles. They have ice in little plastic bags, and to get him some ice bags to keep him cool while we were getting things ready. And literally we were down to this last chair that, would work for him, and I knew it had to be for him. And so we had all the batteries put in and got it charged up a little bit. And we brought it over to Jim Hermerling, who is an OT seating specialist. And then we brought Francisco over to meet him. And we said, Jim's going to take care of you and he's going to fit you for this. And, I've met a lot of people that think a wheelchair is a wheelchair. A wheelchair is not a wheelchair. A wheelchair is not even a car. I mean, this is something that has to be fitted to you just right. Otherwise, you could get bed sores. You could get spinal injuries like scoliosis, and all kinds of things. And of course, I know Belize is Belize, and anything is better than nothing. So I try and keep that in the minds of the people that are fitting our people that come for that, and that this is not the United States. But Jim spent probably, at least an hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours with this guy. I don't know, getting him fixed up and ready. And he was one of the last guys. There was only like about 3 or 4 people left, and we had him fitted for his chair. And I talked to him, and he said he was so thankful, and obviously God met his need and answered his prayer. And we gave him a Bible. We prayed with him. Just prayed that God would just help that chair to not only make him independent and able to do more things in his life, but help him to be a shining light for God and his love and how much he cares for all of us. And in this case, specifically Francisco, that he managed to get him somehow without a wheelchair. I don't know how many miles, but at least 2 hours to one city and 2 hours to another city. And then I'm thinking, he was on the bus that rolled down the hill. Is he thinking, oh my gosh, God, you got me all the way here, and now I'm going to be in this wreck, or I'm not going to be able to make it. But God said no. God said, no, I got you here. I will take care of you, and I will meet your needs. And God got him up the hill. He was in some little pediatric wheelchair when I saw him, and that literally his feet were dragging the ground. And I don't know how he fit in, but he sat in that thing like almost all day while we were getting everything ready. And he was just so thankful. And for those of you who are like me and could be doubters at times, I want you to know God always keeps his promises. And God is always working and making a way for us. And even when we don't see it or hear it or feel it or think it, he is working on our behalf. And I got to tell you, Jesus told his disciples, never stop praying and never give up. And I got to tell you, Francisco did both. And God performed a miracle that day. Connecting Francisco with something that is going to change his life and help him to be more independent, to have more of a life that he can actually enjoy beyond survival, and that he can share the gospel and be a light for Jesus Christ in his community. I don't know much else what to say. I'm not really a big storyteller. I hope you guys were blessed by the story and hearing about Francisco. And be looking out. I'll have some more stories from Belize soon.